Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. I'm Clayton Fletcher, your host here in New York City. 50% of the way to fully vaccinated at this point. I'm happy to say that today, on the day that I'm recording this, I am a recipient of the federal microchip. I mean, the vaccine from Pfizer. And we are joined this week. It's not just me and you. It's me, you, and the founder and the main man at Tournament Poker Edge, your friend and mine, Mr. Killingbird himself, Derek Tenbush, back in business. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, Clayton. How are you, man?
I'm great. I'm so impressed with you. I want to jump right in because you did something that I don't think too many people could do. At least not people in our age category. You did a 24-hour live stream. What was that like? Tell us about it.
It was a lot of fun. You know, it was interesting because I actually attempted this once back sometime during lockdown. I don't remember when, 5-6 months ago or something. It all runs together at this point. And I think I just overthought it, you know? So I was like, all right, I'm gonna wake up and get some stuff done, and then I'll take like a 3 or 4 hour nap. And then I'll start the stream at like 7 p.m., and then I'll stream through until 7 p.m. the next day, and then I'll just go to bed at like my normal time, and it won't like throw everything off. And by like 5 or 6 a.m., my body was just like, you know, you're supposed to have gone to bed a long time ago. This is kind of ridiculous.
No.
And I could have gone for, you know, another 5-6 hours or whatever, but I knew I wasn't going to make it 24, so I literally just called it. I was just like, all right, guys, you know what? This was fun and all, but I'm not going to make it, so I'm just going to quit now. So this time I kind of just went with a more normal strategy, which was I did go to bed early the night before, and then I just said, all right, I'm not even going to set my alarm. Just whenever I wake up, it'll be go time, and that way I'll hopefully be nice and rested, and we'll just go through. And it was the day of my home game, so I knew I had to make it until at least like midnight, 1 o'clock. Because that's when that ends. So I'm like, that'll force me to kind of like stay focused on making it. And but then it almost backfired because I went to bed at like 9 or so, and I thought, you know, I'll sleep till like 6 or 7, and then I'll get started. But I woke up at 3 a.m. and I was just laying there. I couldn't get back to sleep, and then all of a sudden it was 4 a.m. and I'm like, shit, I could have streamed an hour already, and I'd be an hour into my 24 hours. So then I started to get mad at myself because I was like, oh, now I'm just wasting time laying here in bed and I can't get back to sleep. So I just finally got up. So I started the stream at 4 in the morning, and there were a lot of people who were still on from the night before who were like, why are you still streaming? And I'm like, I'm not, I just started.
Right.
So it was really good, you know, like I felt really good the whole time. I kind of planned out like meals and some energy drink influx, and just kind of rolled right through, and I had a really good time. The only thing I was disappointed about is that it didn't end up being as good of a session from a poker standpoint as I had hoped. I started off really hot. I'm in the middle of this challenge with a bunch of other streamers about how many final tables we can make. And I started off really good, and I had 3 final tables and I think 8 cashes in like the first 6 or 7 hours. And I was like, oh man, I'm going to rack up, you know, a bunch of final tables before this is over. And then I literally didn't make another one the entire stream.
For the next 23 hours.
Yeah. So I was pretty disappointed about that. But it was super cool. Like a lot of the other streamers stopped in to like, you know, root me on, and people came through and subscribed and followed and did all that stuff. And I really enjoyed it. It was like, I don't know. It kind of felt like the old days of like marathon poker sessions, which I don't really do a ton of anymore. So it was really enjoyable to do.
Yeah, that's super awesome. Very cool. Yeah, it reminds me, especially the part about you wanting to get sleep and change your schedule. Like a lot of us tournament players, when we take a poker trip, you know, to play live, you really can't pick when you go to bed, because if you really want to do well in a tournament, you got to make sure you get your 8 to 10 hours of sleep or whatever your body needs, right? But what I've done in the past is I'll go down to Florida and visit some of my friends like in the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, and I'll just play cash games at the Hard Rock whenever I feel like it. So if I'm staying at my friend's house and I take some kind of weird nap at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and wake up at 11 p.m. and then play all night, because obviously one thing that's been true since the beginning of time in poker is that cash games are always better late at night. There's a lot of reasons for that, but sleep deprivation is one of them. So
Yeah.
I remember one night many years ago I was playing live at the Palms back when they had a poker room at the Palms. It was such a great spot to play, and I was just playing a little 2-5 or whatever, and I'd been playing a long session. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and then who walks in freshly showered, looking as clean as can be, smelling good, walking in just perfect, ready for his close-up, Macaulay Culkin. He joins our cash game at 3 o'clock in the morning, and like all of us are tired and we've been playing. Half of us are stuck and we're on tilt, and then this guy walks in like it's oh, what a beautiful morning. He's like ready to rock, and he did quite well that night.
That's great. I love.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's there is something to be said for like kind of seeing the other side of midnight as a poker player. But of course, you're playing tournaments and you're also trying to be entertaining on the stream. So who all stopped by? Are those people that we would know?
Just a lot of the sort of like, especially like the ACR streamers and stuff. People like Quick Question Now and Poker in Pajamas. Not huge names or anything in the poker world, but just really good friends and supportive people. And we ended up, of course, playing 24 hours straight of tournaments. I ended up at tables with a lot of friends and stuff like that. So that was really cool.
Yeah. I mean, the player pool on ACR, you do run into a lot of familiar names on there. Especially if you play the same tournaments a lot. It seems like a lot of the regs are very reg in their scheduling. Like, this is the tournament I play every single week or whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't I don't really have like tournaments that I always play. Like, some people are like, oh yeah, I gotta play that 1650 20k every time. It's such a good value or whatever. I'm like so like nonchalant about it. I basically turn on my stream and then I open the lobby and go, well, what's regging? And whatever it is, I just join it, And then there's people like, oh, you missed this tournament. I'm like, I didn't even know that tournament was happening today.
Yeah.
You'd think I'd have a better read after 5 years of playing on ACR. Like, oh yeah, that Tuesdays is that really good tournament, but I don't. I couldn't tell you when anything runs. I just kind of reg whatever's going. But I will say that whenever I play bigger, it is amazing the difference. Like, I'll see a lot of the same people in like the $6, the $11, the 1650s, but you get up to the 55s and 109s, and it's just a whole different group of people. Like, there's such a gap between those two buy-in levels. It's actually kind of shocking.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, if you play like the $100 PKO or something, you're not going to encounter a lot of the same players that will be in the $4 1,000 guarantee or whatever.
Right.
Although for me, I was trying to avoid having to make a deposit on there. So I had done a big cash out, and then I hit my losing streak that I've been talking about for weeks now here on the podcast. So that the account was getting a little low, and then I was getting emails or Twitter messages from TPE members like, is this really you playing in this $3 tournament? I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm trying not to deposit. I'm trying to run it up.
That's right.
And I actually did. My bankroll was all the way down. My bankroll on that site was down below like $100, and now it's up over 1,000 without a deposit. So nice. I went back to the grind. When you're running out of money, you got to go down in stakes, man. That's right. That's just how it is.
That's how I used to do it when I first started. It would be like, what was in my account was all I had. Not all the money I had, but that was the money I had to gamble with because I didn't want to ask my wife, can I put $200 on with a credit card? It's a little easier now when you got your Bitcoin stash. You can just reload when you need to. But back then it was all trackable. And they'd be like, what is this furniture store purchase in Costa Rica? I'm like, oh yeah, that's poker.
Yeah, I buy a lot of furniture from Costa Rica.
Yeah.
So now this is the second attempt at a 24-hour stream and the first successful attempt. Why did you want to do it the first time and this time? Like, what made you want to? Why would you set a goal like that for yourself?
Yeah, so I think this one was. I think one of the reasons this one was more of a success was kind of the motivation behind it. So the first time I did it, which again I think it was 5 or 6 months ago, it was really just a whim. It was just kind of like I think I decided to do it and then did it like the next day or something, and it was just kind of like I don't know. I just got a hair and I was just like 24-hour stream. That sounds fun. Which is probably part of the reason I didn't succeed because I didn't plan for it and I didn't really strategize. So the reasoning behind this one was that it kind of dawned on me that we were coming up on March 16th, which March 16th of last year was the day that here in North Carolina we went into lockdown. And I was like, oh wow, we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary of going into lockdown. And I said, I should really do something to mark that occasion because in a lot of ways, the Twitch community for me has kind of become my social circle now, because I don't, it's not going out to bars and going to see bands and doing all the stuff that I used to do. So I've probably spent as much time with a lot of these people in my Twitch community as I've spent with my best friends in the world. In fact, way more time, like infinitely more time when I think about it. And it's kind of like you've almost, in a lot of ways, they kind of helped me get through COVID or at least not, I mean, I didn't have COVID, but through the COVID period, and I like to think that maybe I provided them some fun and some entertainment while they were locked down as well. So I was like, we should mark this occasion, and I should do something that's like a reward to the community, like something that'll be fun that everybody can get behind. And kind of the reason I thought about doing the 24-hour thing was because I have people who live in all different time zones, right? And I have people who visit the stream from Germany and from Australia and all these different places. And I thought, I'll do an event where everybody can participate, no matter where you live. If you have a day job, if you have a night job, if anything you got to do, you can find some time in this 24-hour period to like swing by and hang out. So yeah, so I called it 24 for 365, 24 hours for 365 days in lockdown. And yeah, it was really cool. And we spent, throughout that stream, we spent a lot of time kind of talking about, what it was like, going through this. And I can't believe it's been a year now that we've done this. And I suspect that as things kind of start to open up a little bit, like I'll probably stream less than I have been because it's all I've had to do. So yeah, so I just thought it was kind of a cool way to, I kept trying to stop myself from saying celebrate because I certainly wasn't celebrating 365 days because it's obviously been a terrible time in our country's history, in the world's history. But it was more of just marking the occasion and kind of like showing some gratitude for people, supporting the stream throughout this crazy, crazy time. So, yeah, so I think that was a big motivator too. It was just like, well, if I'm doing it for like this reason, I kind of have to finish. I can't just be like, I appreciate you guys getting me through COVID, but I'm out.
Yeah, that is a motivator. Yeah. It's just a shame you didn't make more final tables because just the amount of volume you could put in 24 hours to try to win your challenge. I like how you always have some kind of challenge going. It seems like you always got some sort of make it interesting as far as your poker goals or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's fun. I think it's the same reason why I don't do a lot of prop bets and stuff during like the World Series, for example. But I think it's the same reason that a lot of the more seasoned pros than me do those because it's just like a way to keep yourself motivated, Like, poker is a lot of fun. We obviously all love the game, but you play enough of it, especially in a short window of time, it can get pretty monotonous and pretty tiring. So adding little things, and the great thing about this challenge that I'm in the middle of right now, it's not even for money or anything. We actually have no money on the line. It's literally just bragging rights.
Wow.
And it's 5 streamers from the United States against 5 streamers from the rest of the world. So we've just been kind of, calling it the battle of the world, Team USA versus Team World, and so at the end, all we get to do is talk crap to each other if we won. So, but it's enough to keep you going, because you see a guy at a couple of final tables one day, and you're like, shit, I got to get back on the grind. They're ahead of us again.
Yeah, it's nice to have a little national, patriotic spirit or whatever with it. It just reminds me of whenever I've done commentary for any final table at the World Series of Poker, if there's one Brazilian at that table, man, they just take it so seriously. They treat poker like it's the World Cup of soccer, which obviously is the sport they care about the most. But yeah, just the pride that all the Brazilians seem to take in one Brazilian winning a bracelet is just, it's through the charts. It's off the charts. It's just, we don't really have that in this country. Americans are more like, poker's an individual sport. It's not a team sport. It's not a country. Yeah. It's the guy who wins gets the money. That's kind of the way we look at it. But it's nice to say the Americans against the world. I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And like I said, it just kind of pushes you because you'll see your teammates grinding, and if you take a couple days off, you're like, I can't be the one not playing. I gotta get in some tournaments here. Although I'm taking the next 3 days off, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all for that. Yeah. Now, of course, I agree with you, Derek, that we shouldn't be celebrating the fact that the pandemic happened. But I don't see any problem with celebrating the fact that it's ending. It appears to be ending. I mean, people are getting vaccinated at an alarming rate. I mean, I can't believe how many people are getting vaccinated. They're actually a little bit ahead of schedule from what they projected, the number of people that would get the vaccine. Like, I got my first shot earlier today. Are you vaccinated, or what's the status there?
Yeah, actually, I got my first one. God, I'm gonna forget the date now. About 2 weeks ago, I guess.
Okay.
And I get my second. So I have the Pfizer, so it's 2 shots, and I get my second one April 1st. So I guess I'm clear April 15th, I guess. I guess it's still 2 weeks before you're fully vaccinated, I guess.
All right, cool. So follow-up question. Once that happens, if they announce that there will be a Vegas summer of poker, are you going to do it?
That's a really good question. There's been a lot of talk with some of my friends about, are we going to get a house again if this happens? Like, what are we doing? And I keep just kind of saying, I'm just going to wait and see. Not so much because, obviously, if I'm vaccinated, I'm pretty safe. I mean, it's, not 100%, but it's pretty close to it. But I want to see what the setup is. I want to see, like, are we playing 8-handed? Are we playing with plexiglass? Are we playing with masks? Do people coming in have to show a vaccine card? Are they checking temperatures? I just kind of want to see how much of a hassle it's going to be. So what I've kind of told a lot of my friends is, look, if the World Series happens this summer, I'll almost certainly go. How much I play will be the question.
Right.
Because much like you, I think, like, I really enjoy the social aspect of the game. And I've heard nightmares I haven't played a single hand of live poker since this happened. So I haven't done the whole, sit in between plexiglass with a mask and all that stuff. But, and that's, by the way, I want to be very clear. That's not to say that poker rooms shouldn't be doing that, or that I think the World Series shouldn't do it. Right. The question is just, do I want to play in that circumstance, or I just want to wait until that's not a thing?
Yeah.
But, like my buddy, I think it was Jay Smith, or no, it was Bet on Drew was talking about it. And he was kind of saying, like, you can barely talk to the person next to you, and you really can't talk to the person like 2 seats over. And you have to, like, talk really loud for the dealer to hear you. And there's, like, kind of reflections on the glass, so you can't totally see the flop as well as you'd like, and all this different stuff. Oh, boy,
yeah. Yeah, that sounds like a lot. Like you, I have not been inside a casino in over a year. I just made it back to my first comedy club recently, which was fun
I heard you say
because
that.
it had been quite a while since since it was just I had to kind of remind myself how to do stand up. I mean, I've been doing it for a long time, but I actually didn't do it for a year. Wow. I mean, the Zoom shows I did don't really count. It's not the same. It's not the same.
Right.
Anything you can imagine not being the same online. I would say, like, do you think it's the same if you have sex with somebody on the internet as
right.
as if you were live with that person? Like, that's how different it is. It's not even close.
Yeah, I've watched. I've probably watched 15 concerts during COVID online, and it's been nice. Like, it's been fun and cool to see bands playing, but it's not like being at a live concert. By any means.
There's nothing like being there. Yeah, and so if we get back to poker and it's all plexiglass and masks and you can't see or hear anybody, that's maybe a little better than playing online for me socially, but I'm like you. I'm not sure that I would want to participate that aggressively in the WSOP if that's what it is.
Like I'll totally do the house thing, and I'll chill at the pool with my buddies, and I'll go maybe even put the mask on long enough to play some craps or something.
And you never play poker anyway. You do like you'll do like the monster stack and like 2 other events, and other than that, you just like partying with your boys.
That is sadly true. It's interesting though because you mentioned comedy. I have a decision to make in about, I guess, 2 weeks. I actually have tickets to a comedy show that I bought a year and a half ago or something. And they're in the comedy club here. It's called the Raleigh Improv. They've announced that this is going to be their first show back, the one that I happen to have tickets to. So I'm trying to decide, like, do I go? I think it's about 5 days before I reach my, optimum vaccination point or whatever.
Right.
So I'm trying to determine, like, okay, do I gamble? Do I? And they're saying that they're going to have temperature checks, and they're going to have I think one empty table between every table and all this kind of stuff. But I've wanted to see this guy forever, so I'm hoping that I convince myself to go, but I haven't quite decided yet.
I mean, I would hate to encourage you to go and then you catch a disease, but it just feels like the odds of that are pretty slim if you've been, if you've already received 2 shots. Yeah, you're not at the optimum yet, but yeah, I would say you're probably about as safe as you can be, and the infection rate isn't that high to begin with. So
right, and part of it too is I just want to support, these kind of people. Like I want to support bands and I want to support comedians.
Yeah.
Like bars and restaurants and.
Yeah, for sure. Comedy clubs in New York City open again next week, and I have some, appearances scheduled here in my hometown, and I'm hoping that the audience is ready to come back. I think a lot of us here, the epicenter of the pandemic, as New York was called for months, maybe have gotten a little too used to walking around with masks and only watching comedy on Netflix or whatever. So
right.
All of us are kind of bracing ourselves, like, what is the reopening going to look like? And so I guess we'll find out soon enough. But yeah.
I'm excited about it. I am almost certain I'll end up going. So
all right,
it'll be good.
Cool. Who's the comic? Do you want to tell us?
Sure. It's Andrew Schulz.
Oh, Andrew Schulz. He's a friend of mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, definitely. If you hang out and talk to him afterwards, tell him that you know me and that we're friends and poker friends and stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Will do.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I've done 100 shows with Andrew. He's a
cool.
really good comic. Yeah.
Yeah, he. I kind of got turned on to him through his audience riffing videos that he does on YouTube.
Yeah,
and
he's great at that.
Yeah, and then I saw that he was coming, and I was like, all right, this. Like I said, this was a year ago when I was supposed to see him, but yeah, I'm excited about it.
Oh, that's cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've caught up a little bit, and I know that a lot of our listeners are eager to hear a hand. I imagine a guy who played for 24 hours straight probably has a hand or two that he could talk about. No shortage of volume there, right?
It was great, too, because I think I remember saying to myself, I should mark a bunch of hands so that I just have, like, a stockpile of them. But, of course, once I started getting into it, I just didn't even think about it anymore. But I did have one that I saved, so.
Okay, cool.
Also, before I jump into this, I do want to really quickly just send out a congratulations to Vanessa Cade, who won yesterday's Sunday Million for $1.5 million on PokerStars. She's a member of Team ACR, and it was just really cool to see her win. So I wanted to throw that out publicly while I had a chance.
Yeah, for sure. It's such poetic justice what happened to Vanessa, and everyone seems to be celebrating.
You couldn't have written
victory.
Yeah, you couldn't have written that story any more perfectly.
Yeah. So I guess welcome to ACR, right?
Yeah, and she's a super nice person too. I love her to death. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, great.
All right, so this is actually a hand I played pretty recently, so I kind of remember some more of the details than I normally do.
Right.
So this is actually it's a 6-max tournament on ACR. It's a PKO, and it's just a $3.30 buy-in, which could be a factor in deciding how we want to play this hand. And I believe at this time we were about 35 from the money. As I recall. So we're getting pretty close, but not really bubble time.
Right, but 35 left. And do you remember about how many players there are?
I want to say they were around like maybe maybe like 150, 200, something like that. I think it paid like 150, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so 35 away from the money. Like if you're playing in the Colossus with 1,000 tables left,
Yeah.
right? 35 goes pretty fast, but at that number, this could take a while. So you're not that close to the money.
Right. And we're pretty deep, and our table in general is pretty deep. So, what our opponent in this hand in particular is pretty deep. So, kind of makes it sort of interesting from a do I want to cash this tournament standpoint.
Right. Okay, so it's a $3.30 tournament with somewhere between 150-ish players left.
Yeah.
And about 35 spots away from the money, 6 max.
Yep.
All right,
and,
let's hear.
And like I said, it is a PKO, but the one thing I should mention is that I don't recall what our bounties were, but I don't think they were very big because I can't, I remember debating this hand for a really long time, and I don't recall being like, oh well, he has this huge bounty, so I'll do this, or he's just trying to get my bounty because I have a huge bounty. I think we just had like very average bounties at the time, if that makes sense.
Got it.
So we are at 1,500 3K blinds, and we are in the big blind with the King Queen of Spades. There's also a ante is 375. So It folds around to the small blind, who starts this hand with 141 big blinds. We have 106 big blinds.
Man, you're not kidding. We've got a lot of chips here.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So it's going to be blind versus blind. He limps, so he puts in the extra 1,500, and I have King Queen of clubs. I opt to go ahead and raise it up. I assume you're cool with that, especially this deep.
Yeah, I mean this deep. I feel like just for value, he's got a lot of chips. He might feel like he doesn't want to let you bully him. It's a $3 tournament, so he might call you way too wide. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would go ahead and bump it up pretty big, maybe like 12,000, like 4x.
Yeah, I almost kind of wish I had gone a little bit bigger. I mean, I don't go super small, but I went 99.99, so we'll call it 10K.
Okay.
So yeah,
no problem there. I don't see a problem with that either.
Yeah, seems fine. I mean, I think a little bigger might be better, but it's kind of splitting hairs.
Yeah, but who knows? I mean, maybe a little bigger gets too many folds. Maybe your bet is actually perfect.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah, it depends on your opponent here.
Yeah, and he kind of seems like a decentish player, just from a stats standpoint. He's running 27, 18, 5, which are pretty reggy-ish numbers. I certainly wouldn't call him a fish, or it doesn't seem like he's not playing half his hands or anything. And this is at a 6-max table too, so that's in fact almost tight for a 6-max table.
Yeah, so when you say 27, 18, is that in all of his tournaments forever, or is that just in this tournament?
That is just in this tournament.
Yeah, so in a 6-max, those are pretty good numbers, pro numbers, I would say.
Yeah. So we raise it up to 99.99. He calls. So we go to the flop with 22.2K in the middle. Mm-hmm. And we get the flop of 7 of clubs, 9 of clubs, 4 of diamonds. So we flop the second nut flush draw and 2 overs.
Okay, so it's a 9-7-4 on the flop. So we've got the king, queen of clubs, and there are 2 clubs on the flop. So we've got a flush draw, we've got 2 overcards. We have 1 weird backdoor straight draw, but we probably don't worry about that one too much, right?
Yep.
Okay, so and then he checks to us, I assume?
He does check to us, and we go ahead and bet 13,229. So just a little above half pot.
Okay, would you make that same bet if you had pocket kings?
No, I don't think I would. I think I would make it smaller.
Okay, so if you wouldn't make this play with the big overpair, what are your value hands that make this bet, if any?
Probably not much.
Yeah.
Like maybe I don't even know if I would do this with like 8s. Like I'm trying to think of smaller pairs that I might do this with. I think I even go smaller on those.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind this play with 8s. Because you really want to discourage further action. You're fine with just taking it down or whatever. And, the reason I'm asking these questions, obviously, is because, if you're aspiring for game theory optimization, then you want to be making the same bet with this bluff that you would with your value.
Right.
However, we should keep in mind our opponent is in a $3 tournament. And so if the nuances of that in other words, if the nuances of GTO are kind of lost on him, there may be a case for betting bigger when you're bluffing, betting smaller when you're not.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying it's a bad play, but I like to know kind of, is this the same bet that we would make with our value? And it sounds like it's not. So we're just counting on the fact that our opponent won't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I'm trying to think of what I would. Trying to put myself in the place of having kings and thinking what I would bet, and I think it's probably something like 9K, maybe even 8K.
Yeah, that sounds right. Like a little more than 1/3 of the pot, I think, is kind of the standard value bet. So if you would make this play with, your small pairs like pocket eights, maybe pocket sixes, those hands have 3 to a straight, so it's okay. It's kind of like it's a value, but there's also a bluffing component. You might be able to double barrel a lot of cards when you have something like pocket eights, right? So you're unlikely to get value from worse if you're betting this much with pocket eights, right?
Right.
But it is a good bet to make. I think you could make this bet with aces or kings or queens, because you can get called by a flush draw, you can get called by a straight draw, you can get called by a pair of nines that isn't going anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So I actually don't mind if you would have said, yes, I would make this bet with kings. But in my experience, most people nowadays are betting about 1/3 of the pot with their overpairs on boards like this.
Yeah. And I think we also, I think the one argument maybe I could have made for betting bigger here is that, we still just have king high, so we want to fold out maybe some better hands. But the problem is, I don't think he folds any better hands. He probably doesn't limp call ace queen or ace king, and everything else, if he had ace 9 or ace 7 or 5-6 or, all these hands, those are just going to come along. So.
Right, yeah. Now, we still have such a deep stack that you're right. You're not getting him to fold, if he has, ace 4 offsuit, right, with no club. He'll probably call even a relatively large bet. He's just got bottom pair, but he'll probably say, I'm not ready to give up on this one yet. He's probably going to call one time, but that's why we need to have a lot of double barrels, especially when you bet this big. Now you've made yourself a big pot that you need to try to win now.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of another reason why I think I still lean towards liking a smaller bet better, because then we can kind of bomb turn a little heavier, but not have to invest as much as we're now going to have to invest to bomb turn.
Yeah. I mean, from studying all the Andrew Broca's videos on TPE, I see so many instances where you want to bet about 1/3 of the pot, maybe a little more, maybe a little less even, depending on the exact situation. But generally, a smaller flop bet makes a lot of sense a lot of the time. And then maybe even a pot size bet, or in some cases even a little bigger on the turn, over betting on the turn, just seems insanely profitable. So if you make a small bet here on the flop, knowing that he's going to call you with any piece, any backdoor, any, right?
Yeah.
Because your bet is so small and he's heads up in the blinds, then you take away everything on the turn by betting so big he really can't call without a monster, and he almost never has one when he checks twice. So there is a lot of logic to that line, or even a smaller version where you bet 1/3 on the flop and then say 3/4 on the turn. Even that bet is hard to call with another card to come.
Right.
So, yeah, I've seen that pattern a lot more in the higher stakes tournaments I've been playing on WSOP.com with the pros that I'm 100% sure are infinitely better at the game than I am.
Right.
You see that small bet flop and then big bet turn a lot. So.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to do a program bet, like that's how you always do it, but this does feel like a spot for me where you'd want to bet small for value if you had pocket aces, pocket kings, pocket queens, whatever. So semi-bluffing, the same amount, is unexploitable. Still, that's not enough for me to say it's the right play here because, again, it depends on how worried are we about this opponent exploiting us in this $3 tournament.
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what we ended up betting 13-2-2-9, and he does call.
Okay, so now we're going to play a big pot.
Yeah, we've created a big pot here, so let's go. So we go to the turn with 48.7K in the middle.
And we have something like 300,000 behind, right?
Yeah, we're just under 300,000, 295.
Okay, cool. So, and the turn is?
The turn is the king of spades, so that gives us top pair now.
Okay, so let's refresh. We have king, queen of clubs on a board of king, 9, 7, 4 with 2 clubs. So that's a beautiful turn card for us, right? We've got top pair with our flush draw now, so life is good.
Yeah, this is the turn card where you go, oh, I'm so glad I bet big on the flop. Now we got a bigger pot to play.
Yeah, I mean, there's one way to look at it. In all likelihood, we have 15 outs on the flop if we're even behind.
Right.
With all those flush cards plus the pair outs, that's 15. So we're loving it. So there will be a lot of times when we're going to like the turn card. Of course, we want to club even more than this, but this is a great card to hit.
Yeah, agreed. So he checks to us again. Okay. And this time we choose to bet 30. I'll call it 30,000. It's actually 30,229.
Okay.
Because that's what I do.
All right.
So a little bit bigger, but still not huge. I actually don't mind this being kind of a little bit smaller though, just because I'm trying to think of what this guy has that he's going to continue with if we were to bet like pot size here or something. Like, I don't know. Does he keep going with 8-9? Maybe.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to fold top pair on the flop in the blinds. Even though it's not top pair anymore on the turn, it was top pair on the flop, and it's just good so much heads up.
Yeah, very true.
That pair of nines, you've got to have bluff catchers in your range, right? You can't just check fold every time you don't have the nuts. But yeah, I mean, maybe a bigger bet than this one. Now you're betting 30 into 49. So that's like a little more than 60%. That's right around 60%, actually. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, let's say you're betting 60%. You bet more than that on the flop as a percentage. And now you're betting 60 here on the turn. So, I mean, you're showing tremendous strength. So it is ambitious. Like if you are still bluffing, which we now know you're not, but if you are still bluffing, trying to get this guy to fold a 9, like, generally speaking, I don't try to get people to fold what was top pair on the flop in $3 tournaments at all. Like, I just don't do that.
Yeah, like, I think if I had, like, say, ace queen of clubs here, I'd probably just check back this turn.
Yeah, so now you're trying to get value. So you wouldn't expect him to fold if you're bluffing. So now we are targeting. He called a big bet on the flop, so top pair is definitely a big part of his range, right?
Yeah.
So now that we can beat top pair with top pair on the flop, because now it's second pair and we actually turn top pair ourselves, we can beat that 9 and we don't think he would fold it when we're bluffing. So now that we want him to call, we should make that same bet. So, yeah, I like your turn sizing a lot. I'm happy with that.
Good. And he calls.
Okay, so now we really hope this player has like the 9-8 type of hand that you're talking about, and he correctly is calling because you should have a lot of bluffs on the turn, double barrel bluffs. So I don't blame him for calling with a 9. So
yeah, I'd agree with that. So now we have a pot. There's 109,000 in the middle, and we see the 3 of spades on the river, which is probably as close to an inconsequential card as I could think of in this spot.
There's one hand that got there, right? So again, the board was 7-9-4, king, tray. So the 6-5, right? Okay, got there. But like I always say, you can't worry about everything.
Yeah, I would agree. Although it is very much a hand I would limp call in the small blind, I must admit. But yeah, I think I always, like you, I think hesitate to be like, oh, probably has 5-6.
Yeah, I mean, it's not profitable to play poker worrying about everything all the time. You have to get value for your good hands. Now, we end up with a pair of kings and a queen kicker, heads up in the blinds. That's a much bigger hand than it might feel like.
Yes.
That's closer to the nuts, heads up against the small blind.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I mean, it's not a done deal, but I think we have to go for value here when he checks to us again.
I absolutely agree. The only thing we're really going to lose is if he has a busted flush draw, which he's just going to fold, but we have two clubs, so the likelihood of him having busted flush draws aren't that great. So I think he has a 9 here a lot of the time. Sometimes something like ace-7 or 7-8 or 6-8, something like that. Or sorry, 6-7. But I don't think those hands are going to call much of a bet anyway. So I think we're really targeting a 9.
Yeah, the value target, if you will, is a 9. I want to correct something I said earlier. I misstated that your flop bet was bigger than 60%. Looking back on it, you bet 13 into 22, which
okay.
Yeah, it's not that much. It's not bigger than 60%. I think it's right around 60%. It feels like you're betting 60% on the flop and the turn. Just doing the math in my head here. I was thinking there was less in the pot on the flop. So just wanted to correct that real quick. All right, so now we still have a pair of kings. He checks to us. Yeah, I mean, I think it's criminal not to go for value here because he can call you with a 9, which we think is a big part of his range. So let's try to get that value.
Yeah, and so I think if he has a 9 here, part of me kind of feels like we almost have to go smaller to get value. I end up going, actually, it looks like about 60% again, which is actually making me wonder if I have my bet button set to 60%, and I used it on every street.
Yeah, it could be. But, like, in his shoes, I think we just have to pay off. You have to have bluff catchers. I mean, I don't know how much he knows about you. Like, I know, and our listeners know, that you're not a triple barrel with nothing kind of guy, generally speaking.
Yeah.
That's not really your playing style. But if he doesn't know that, and if he's generally suspicious, or if he just understands game theory and says it's too exploitable to fold, like especially if he has a strong 9 here, if he has a hand like Queen 9 or Ace 9 or whatever, not sure he would limp that, but let's just say for the sake of argument, he somehow gets this river with a strong pair of 9s. I mean, if that's not going to call heads up in the blinds, then he's pretty exploitable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you should be triple barreling him every time, whether you have a king here or not. So,
yeah. So maybe I went 62. Maybe that's really not too bad. 62 into 109.
Yeah, it's 60. It's about 60% of the pot.
Yeah.
And I like the sizing. I mean, I would expect to at least some of the time get called by a pair of 9s. I mean, if betting half that much gets called twice as often, it's the same math. You make the same money from the play. So betting half that much, you would need to get called more than twice as often by a pair of 9s, and I'm not convinced that you would. I think a lot of players, especially in the smaller stakes tournaments, don't actually pay that much attention to sizing. It's more the fact that you've bet again is what he'll consider, regardless of the sizing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, they're either going to look at this as, wow, this guy really has it, he'd bet 3 streets, or this guy's just blasting away, and I don't believe him, or I just feel like I'm good enough here to call with my Queen 9 or King 9 or 8-9 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have bluff catchers in your range, or else you're susceptible to the bet.
Right.
Which we can also call the Clayton bet till they fold strategy. Right? I mean, he's come this far, and now when you bet 60%, his hand has to be good, 40% of the time to break even. Yeah. So I think it is. I mean, I think it is. Maybe not against Killingbird specifically, but yeah, you should have some missed flushes in your range. You should have some other missed draws in your range, and you should have some bluffs with just the ace of clubs in your range.
Yep.
So
yeah,
I'm all for it.
All right. So we bet, like I said, 62, and we're sitting there praying for a call, and then all of a sudden he makes it 265,000.
Is that all in for him? It is, right?
It is not, actually. It leaves him 112K behind.
Oh, okay.
Interestingly, if I was to call this bet, I would have about 9,000 chips left.
Oh, okay. So it's almost enough to put you all in.
Yes.
And I wonder if that means anything. You know, do these guys say, "Oh, I'm going to leave him a little bit"? But the fact that it's a PKO, this has to be a mistake on his part. Either way, like if he's got a hand to break you with, he needs to put in that other 9,000 now.
Right.
And if you just call and lose the pot, he left your bounty on the table. So I think regardless of what he has, this play is a mistake. This sizing is a mistake by 9,000.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. I don't mind check shoving, but don't you can't leave somebody a few chips in a PKO. You just can't.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it was really weird. I thought, like, at first my instinct was, because I will admit I have been guilty of one chipping people a few times where I bet enough to leave them with one chip in the tournament, just because they did something to piss me off at some point. So at first I was like, is this guy trying to, like, not really one chip me, but 9K chip me when the blinds are 1,500 3K, or what is going on here? And it might have just been that he hit, like, the 3X button or something. I haven't done the math to see if that's how it worked out. But it was a very odd bet.
Yeah, it's an odd bet for sure. It doesn't 3X, but it's just weird. Yeah, it's maybe he clicked half the pot or something. I don't know. It's a weird bet.
And I don't know what it means.
Yeah. But, all right, here's the first question I would ask. What do you think is the likelihood that this player has check called, and check raised on the river as a bluff?
Yeah, I
don't think it
happens. I don't think it happens very often.
I don't think it happens often in the $50 buy-ins we were talking about earlier against that other class of players that you find on ACR.
Right.
And the number of times I've actually seen it on a small stakes PKO type of tournament where my opponent starts with over 100 big blinds and now he's just going to put everything in as a bluff here.
Right. I try to sometimes think, like, what would I be doing in his spot? So let's say I flopped a set of 9s or 7s or 4s, or maybe I had 5, 6. And I think the challenge for me is that when I think of all those hands, I think I would have played it differently. Like, if I had flopped a set, I think I would have check raised to the turn. If I had 9s or 4s or something like that. And if I had 5, 6, I think I would have led the river to try to get a value from a king. Unless I'm just really confident that, and when I say I mean my opponent, unless he's really confident that I am bluffing here, then, like, I would just bet the river and try to get value from whatever it is that I'm barreling 3 streets with, because, like, the only thing that we see less than his play is my play, which is firing 3 barrels as a bluff. Especially if he has got numbers on me.
We see that more often
Yeah.
than we see the check raise bluff, though. The check raise bluff on the river is something you will seldom see outside of, like, high rollers and stuff. It's just it's so rare. I mean, I don't know the outcome of this hand. Full disclosure for our listeners, I do not know what happened after this check raise, whether Derek called or not, and if he did he win or lose the pot? I don't know. So with that said, I think this is a really awful spot for you, but I think that you need to throw your hand away just because if this is that 1 in a million check raise bluff on the river. See, the reason why he can confidently check to you on the 3 on the river, if he has a 6-5, right, is you should have a lot of missed draws in your range. The board is wet. It's 9-7-4 with 2 clubs. And then the king on the turn creates a lot of double barrel opportunities for you when you have something like Queen Jack of clubs, right? Those kinds of hands that now have not only a flush draw but also a gut shot. They can barrel pretty confidently with another 60% bet on 4th Street, right?
That's a good point.
And now, and you just missed everything when that's what you have. You missed it all. Like if you have Ace Queen of clubs or Queen Jack of clubs, you might not feel. Maybe Ace Queen you would check down and hope that he also missed a flush, but everything else you have to bet again. You can't
that's
win.
really good. That's a really good point.
So from his standpoint, he should be checking to you when he made the nuts on the river, because that's the only way you can make any money, because you're going to have a lot of missed draws in your range. So
yeah,
that's why I'm happy with his decision to check when he made the nuts. Here on the end.
Yeah, you have me a little more convinced now. I didn't like the check raise, but now that we've kind of talked it through, I think you're right. I think I do like it more, assuming he has it.
yeah, and then I mean, of course, if he's going to be perfectly balanced, he can also make this play with 6-5 or 5-5, 6-6, maybe 7-6. Like when he blocks the nut straight,
right,
then he can rep it better and stuff like that. So when he has other hands that aren't that, but he knows that you are so unlikely to have that, and he can represent that, then he can also make this same play as a bluff. But in practice, you just don't see it. In these $3 buy-in PKO tournaments, you just don't see it. The check raise bluff on the river, it's not in most players' arsenals.
Yep.
At all. You've shown such strength.
Yeah.
Betting 60% you raise pre and then you bet 60% pot every opportunity you had. So he needs to never bluff against you here. I mean, very, very rarely. So yeah, I hate it, but I'm throwing away my king queen. What did you do?
Yeah, so this is interesting. So of course I can always remember what I was saying in these hands because I was streaming.
Yeah.
And I remember literally saying, none of this makes any sense to me. Although it does make more sense to me now that you and I have talked through it, like I said. But in my head then, I was thinking, sets don't do it this way, straights don't do it this way. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me. But I do remember specifically saying, if this were like a higher buy-in tournament, I'd probably fold here. Even though that's probably the opposite of what I should be doing. I should probably be calling here more. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because I thought lower stakes players wouldn't do this. It was that I just decided I didn't care about the $3 and I really wanted to know what this guy had. But I also specifically remember saying, but I'm not being left with 9,000 chips. So I'm just going all in and he can have my bounty if he has a better hand than me.
Oh my God. Okay.
And so I want to be clear that this is the non-strategy part of the of the strategy segment. Don't do what I just did, guys. That's probably a fold in that spot. But sometimes I just need to know. But this is where it gets fun. So I shove. I make it 265.
9,000 more. Yeah.
Yeah. And our opponent folds.
Okay.
So we will now never know what he did this with, but we know it wasn't 5-6.
Yeah, I mean, unless it was the worst misclick of all time, and he meant to call, but he accidentally folded. Yeah, okay, so it looks like, I mean, what could he have that can't call 9,000 more and try to win your bounty? It must be like the nut low.
Like, because ace high has to call.
I think so.
I think
price?
I think queen high probably has to call.
Yeah, for that price. Yeah,
I mean, it's $9K to win 632,000 chips. Like,
he must have had like 8 high or something.
Yeah, or a misclick.
Yeah,
but I don't know. That's why you just go all into that spot and don't do that, because you could disconnect or time out or something, lose the pot.
Yeah, he should have check shoved if he wanted to. Yeah. Well, that's very strange, but I'm shocked. I'm shocked because I don't think I've ever seen, and I've played, especially recently, I've played a lot of very small buy-in tournaments on ACR, and I don't think that I've ever seen a check raise bluff on the river by anyone, against anyone, not just in the hands that I've played, the hands that I've observed. I have never seen this.
Yeah, I kind of brought the hand like 20% for entertainment value because of the way it ended. But I also did think that it was very interesting because it is not a line you see very often, particularly in low stakes tournaments.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure that I had probably made the wrong play on the river. And I ended up winning the pot, and he made a really weird full. But we always kind of talk about these things and say, well, even though we did win this pot, it doesn't necessarily mean that our play was good. Because if it worked this time, but it only works 10% of the time, then it's probably a bad play. you know. But yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting.
That is extremely interesting, and it just makes me want to find that guy and ask him what the heck happened here. Like, why didn't you check shove? And then how can you fold for 9,000 more unless you had a literal nut low?
Yeah. So quit your bitching if you're out there listening. Hit us up on Twitter. Let us know what you folded. And the weird thing is, too, if this guy was running like 65-25 or something, A, I don't think the hand would be as interesting. And B, like, it wouldn't surprise me because he could have just been having a few drinks and kicking back and splashing around and just doesn't care or whatever. But I mean, the guy's running like solid numbers. I mean, he's running 27-18, like very reggy numbers. So
reggy numbers and a sick username.
Yes,
like
yeah. So it's
man.
So that just kind of made it that much more interesting to me, But
that is all right. Well, this is one for the record books. I'm really at a loss. I have no idea what's going on anymore.
Don't try that at home, guys.
Yeah, do not try that one at home. Well, congrats. Did you end up cashing in this tournament? I hope so.
Yeah, we actually ended up making a fairly deep run. I think we finished in like the top 30 or 40 or so. But I remember distinctly thinking it was going to be a good shot at a final table because of our little final table challenge that we have going on. Ended up going south on us.
Yeah, but after this pot, you have like 200 plus big blinds.
Yeah, we were in a really good spot. I remember we took a really kind of sick beat at some point. Not to like knock us out or anything, but like took a half our stack or something.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of spiraled out of control from there.
That's the way it goes sometimes in tournaments.
So true.
Yeah. All right, well, that was a good one. You always bring something fun for us to discuss. That's amazing. I can't believe he folded. All right, so what else, Derek? What's coming up with your stream? Plug away.
Yeah, so actually, it dawned on me. We did the Tooth and Nail. That's the old company I used to work for. We did the Tournament Poker Edge 10-year anniversary sort of tournament and celebration a year ago. Can you believe?
No.
Year 11 is coming up next month.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, so it'll be April 16th is sort of the anniversary of the company launching. So I haven't decided on the exact date, but it's going to be sometime that week. I'm going to try to put together another private tournament where all the TP members can come out and play and hang out and kind of celebrate another year. But it's shocking to me that a year has gone by since we did that.
Yeah, that is incredible. I remember that like it was yesterday, right at the beginning of the pandemic. We're like, okay, well, we'll just play. We'll celebrate TPE. We'll play a little on ACR, and then 2 weeks from now we'll be going to Vegas for the World Series.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I didn't even think about the fact that was like basically right at the beginning. Well, not so much the beginning for you, but the beginning for a lot of us who did lock down until much after you. But
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so like I said, I don't have the exact details hammered out because it really just snuck up on me. But just watch my Twitter or the TP Twitter or the TP forums, and I'll post all the details up in there. And it'd be fun to have everybody come out and play.
Yeah. Now you're Killingbird on Twitter, right?
I'm actually at Derek Tenbush, but if you if you search Killingbird, it pops right up. So
okay, yeah, but the handle is actually at Derek Tenbush.
Yep, correct.
All right, cool. Well, either way, you'll find it if you just type that into the search. There aren't that many Killingbirds out there, so you'll find him.
Yeah, my band is there, but you'll be able to tell the difference between the two very easily.
Yeah, pretty quickly. All right. Yeah, look for the guy with all the poker chips and the mean poker face on. That's the guy you're looking for. Yeah. Oh man, always a pleasure, sir. Thanks for doing the podcast with me.
Yeah, but I had a blast.
Yeah, always. So for Derek Tenbush and for everyone else here at Tournament Poker Edge, I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas plays. Fold them, let love, hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Luck and intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. I wanna roll with her, a hard pair we will be. While little gambling is fun when you're with me. I love it. Russian roulette is not the same without a gun. And baby, when it's love, if it's not rough, it isn't fun. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile.